Welcome, everyone, to the Maxis Health's webinar. Our topic today is the family ripple effect, how dysregulation spreads through the family. I have just a couple of housekeeping things. As I noted, we are recording this, so you'll be able to go back later and watch and share with friends or reference any of the topics we've talked about. We're going to do a brief presentation, and if you have questions, I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat. And then once Dr. Gonzalez is finished speaking, we'll go back and hit up all your questions and go through them. We'd like to welcome parents who have been participating in the ORI Parent Program, which is a month-long program where parents use the ORI app and provide feedback about how they use it to support their children when they have big feelings. They share what works and what doesn't, and for that great input, we give them a gift certificate. If you're watching this and want to learn more about that program, you can send an email to ORI, that's ORI, .journey@maxishealth.com. So let's get started. We are so lucky to have a wonderful presenter today. Dr. Erin Schoenfelder Gonzalez is a child clinical psychologist and associate professor at the University of Washington School of Medicine. She co-directs the Behavior and Attention Management Specialty Program at Seattle Children's Hospital, where she helps families navigate the challenges of ADHD with practical evidence-based strategies. She's also director of the First Approach Skills Training Program that trains clinicians in easy-to-use evidence-based tools to support youth mental health in integrated care settings. Dr. Gonzalez is also the author of My ADHD Toolkit, a children's book series designed to empower kids and families with tools for success. She has served as a scientific consultant for Maxis Health for the past 4 years and actually helped design the parenting and self-regulation strategies that you find in ORI. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Erin and let her do what she does best. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you so much, Monique. It's great to be here with you all. It's morning for us still in Seattle. I think most of you, it's afternoon, but here we go. I'm going to share my slides. And Monique, can you see that?
It's coming up here. Yes, now we can.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to talk about how child dysregulation challenges are really a family process that evolves over time. And if you're here, I think you probably can relate to seeing how the entire family gets involved when your child is having really challenging behavior or really big feelings. So I want to just pose these questions for thought as we get started here. I know if you're an ORI user or you're interested in using ORI, you really want your children to be learning about emotions. And so we want to ask, how do they do that? What do you want them to know and understand about feelings? And how do they get that knowledge? And then I imagine that you also want them to learn how to handle big feelings that are physically overwhelming. And so my next question is, how do you learn those skills? How do you learn to self-regulate? It's tempting to think, well, I can, read a book to my child about it. I can tell them to take deep breaths, but it's really more complicated than that, as you all know from your parenting journey already. So certainly we learn about feelings by watching other people's experiences, seeing how they react to things, watching how they manage their overwhelming moments. And we, as the parents and caregivers in their lives, are the #1 key models. We know them better than anyone. We spend more time with them than anyone. And so we are in a unique position here to model understanding and talking about feelings, but also regulating feelings and handling really difficult moments too. They certainly learn by trial and error. Even if your child is working on some new coping skills, there are going to be moments where those skills fail them, or they're not able to find those skills. And of course, again, as I mentioned, it's tempting to say, oh, I'll explain to my child about feelings. I'll explain to them how to self-regulate. But for the developing brain, it's pretty hard to translate that into actual action in the real world. So we really want to make this more of a process alongside our child rather than a teaching instructional moment. So we've really evolved in our thinking and understanding about emotion regulation in children. 10 years ago, definitely 20 years ago, you could find coping skills programs where you drop your kid off and somebody teaches them how to take deep breaths and how to tell yourself, I can calm down. And, you know, there's certain kids where that will be helpful. But for the majority of young mammals, they're going to learn to regulate by regulating alongside their parent's nervous system. When you see, for example, you know, a baby, here we have a baby leopard out there encountering a snake and jumping back, what are they going to do? They're going to run to their mother, right? They're going to cling onto their mother and look to their mother's reaction of how she's going to assess the situation and handle it. They're going to mimic the behaviors of the adults as they deal with threats or they deal with any type of intense moment. So we want to actually capitalize on this for our baby mammals that we're raising, our kids, by thinking of this as a process where we're alongside each other. So co-regulation is a term that is used to refer to a calm person. Hopefully that's us. We're not always calm 100% of the time, but we, the caregiver, can be calm, and we can use our self-regulation to stabilize our child's nervous system. And we do that not by telling them anything specifically, but through our relational connection, by being tuned in, by listening, by understanding, by giving space when needed, by getting closer when needed. We use that relationship. And of course, on the flip side, if the environment around a child, our household, us, if we are in the crisis zone ourselves, our child is never going to be able to use coping skills. They're going to become increasingly dysregulated. And the research on looking at kids who have big emotions and trouble regulating in childhood and then improve their self-regulation and become regulated adults, they have a calm, supportive environment that allows them to grow and use those skills. When a child who's dysregulated is in a chronically chaotic environment, when they have a caregiver who's not trying to use coping skills, who's not tuned into their role, we see that those big emotions persist and become sometimes bigger problems into the teen and adult years. So your role is to help create as regulated and supportive of an environment around your big emotions child as possible. That's certainly where Ori is here to help you. I want to just look a little more at how we caregivers get pulled into the pattern of challenging behaviors. So if we look at this cycle here, we're going to start at the top, that you have a child who maybe was hardwired to have challenges with attention and focus, with reacting impulsively, with having really big emotions, going from 0 to 60 really fast, to have trouble with change. That may be kind of hardwired into their brain and their behavior. But what happens to us when we're parenting our child with challenging behaviors is we keep trying to do more and more to stop the behaviors. We start to hover. We have to give instructions 15 times. We have to stand over them. We have to correct them constantly. We end up having to react to a lot of negative behaviors, and we have negative reactions. We're human. We're upset. We're frustrated. And over time, we get more intensely frustrated because it's not getting better. We're also inconsistent in that maybe one day I got enough sleep, I had my coffee. Today I can handle it calmly, but tomorrow I have no reserves in the tank and I blow up when my child is screaming. So over time, naturally, this affects our child, right? They feel like, gosh, you're constantly on my case. And either they develop bigger behaviors that are outwardly facing, like defiance, like being disrespectful, trying to control the situation by trying to control their parents' feelings, pushing boundaries. Or sometimes their bigger behaviors are turned inward on themselves. They feel like they're constantly screwing up. They become more anxious. They become more fearful and avoidant of things that they think they're going to screw up on. And we see more meltdowns. And for many kids, it's both. It's not one or the other. It's more big outward behaviors and more inward anxious behaviors. So now we're parenting a child with even more difficult behaviors. And naturally, we are frustrated, we're overwhelmed, we are burned out because it feels like nothing we're doing is working. And we're drawing on discipline strategies that are erratic and not really in line with the values that we want to be teaching our child. And of course, over time, it feels like we're stuck in our relationship with our child. Why am I going to plan a fun outing if it's going to blow up in my face and my child's going to have a meltdown and it's going to be embarrassing, right? We stop scheduling in fun and time to enjoy each other. So if you're here, you probably can relate to some pieces of this cycle. And I welcome you to say in the chat, what resonates here. But we're really here because you want to break this cycle. And that's where Ori is coming in to help you be by your side in your home to change this negative cycle into a positive cycle with your child. So here's what that can look like. We want you to feel equipped with parenting skills that are consistent, that you have a game plan for how you're going to react to certain behaviors, and that we're giving lots of positive attention to any movement in a good, healthy direction with our child's coping. In return, we can set our child up to feel successful, to feel like, okay, I've got this, to feel like mom or dad and I are going to be okay, even though I had a meltdown, we can bounce back from this. And when we listen and tune into our kids, that's where respect comes from. It doesn't come from dropping the hammer and scaring them. It comes from them knowing that we are there and we're going to listen and we're going to support them. This can also help us drop the rope on power struggles, picking way too many battles, expecting too much. We want to have more realistic expectations, and we're really going to want to walk away, drop the rope on most of the difficult moments, rather than doubling down and trying to control our child and make them behave differently. And then we also want to schedule in more fun. We want to remember how much we enjoy our child and have them remember that it's fun to get positive reactions and attention too. So with these different components here, the goal is to break the cycle of challenging behavior, even though we're not going to give your child a different brain. They may still have ADHD, they may still have big emotions, but they've learned skills and we've learned skills to keep supporting them. So as we've already emphasized, our child's self-regulation is going to start with us, the parents. And we, by being regulated, help them find the calm inside them and rise to the occasion of using coping skills to deal with tough moments. Because we know probably you've seen your child cope with certain situations and you feel like, okay, they know what to do. They're just not doing it when the stakes are higher, when things are more intense. So we want to help them practice those skills when things actually are pretty tough. All right, so a few steps to think about in co-regulation. You'll see a lot of this in Ori. The first one is that our emotional urge when things are heated is probably not an effective one, right? Our urge might be to yell, to tell them you're acting like a toddler. Why are you doing this? To make threats, to just rescue them from the situation and give up on trying. Depending on your history, you might have a different urge, among those different options. So the first thing is stop. We do not have to solve a behavior instantly. We do not need to jump in and in 2 seconds have a solution. We need to regulate ourselves before we try to act. So then as we are using our coping, whatever that may be for you, we want to ask ourselves, what do I want my child to learn right now? And here are some things that may resonate with you. I want my child to know that I'm not afraid of their feelings, and they don't need to be afraid of their feelings. I will be here with them. We can work this out. We might want them to learn that big feelings are manageable and they can do it. And we also want them to learn that screaming at us, being aggressive, hitting, running away is not effective. We want to give minimal reaction to those behaviors while making sure our child is safe in the moment. So when we ask that question of what can they learn, that guides our choice of a response in the moment that is lined up with my parenting values, whether that might be presence and unconditional love, whether that might be showing respect and practicing values that are part of my culture or part of my belief system. We want to think about for you what that is, what you really want your child to look back on and remember you being about as a parent. And we want to choose a response that makes us feel aligned, points toward our compass headed north. And then we're going to use that response that we chose that's lined up with our values. So we're wanting to avoid reacting. We want to avoid just reacting, and we're responding. And probably part of that response, hopefully, should be that we are modeling regulated behavior. We have stepped aside for whatever it takes to take our breaths, to remind ourselves of our coping thoughts so that we can return calmly. If we get pulled into the tornado, it's going to get much, much worse. So we're going to model our regulated behavior, and we're going to, depending on your child, we may engage, we may do something actively in that moment. We may cope alongside them. We may offer them soothing. We may help them problem solve. Or with the bigger emotions or the button pushing, negative attention seeking behaviors, our response may be to teach them that that's not an effective way to handle their feelings. So we may kind of go into our really calm, almost bored mode so that we're not making it exciting to blow up and destroy things. We do still, I don't want to give the impression that all behaviors are okay. We want our kids to know all emotions are okay, but this doesn't mean we have to accept and approve of any behavior they do. We can deal with consequences. We want to set those ahead of time, some household rules. But in the moment, we just need to make sure things are safe and support our child in learning something positive from that tough moment. Okay, where does Ori come in? And I think if you're here, you already know how Ori works and hopefully are seeing benefit from using these skills with Ori. But here are some of the goals that hopefully you've experienced already. So Ori's going to help you observe the situation and better understand triggers and behaviors and the skills that are going to work or not work for your particular child. So as you track things in Ori, you may see patterns emerging. You may see that in this situation, when I had X response, that was more effective. The time that I use this other response, less effective. So you'll see which skills are going to help. And you're also tracking lifestyle factors such as your child's diet and looking for patterns in when they can find their resilience, when they respond best to our strategies versus when they're a lot more dysregulated. Ori, of course, is going to provide coaching and ideas for you in the moment. It's going to talk to you about, help you with that decision of when you want to do more, when you want to engage and actually talk and do something active versus when you need to do less, when you need to give your child space to regulate themselves. And of course, Ori is going to focus first and foremost on helping you keep your cool Because if you are also melting down, you're going to be really burned out and you're not going to feel very effective. So it's going to help you avoid burnout, and it's going to help you actively model and in some cases teach emotion regulation skills. And then, of course, over time, as you use ORI, over weeks, even months, you can learn to change these patterns between you and your child. The skills become automatic. You may get to the point you don't need to open the app. Your strategies are second nature, and your whole family is able to use skills. And ORI is letting you be proactive, planning ahead, being prepared, rather than having to react to crisis moments from your emotional brain, your urges. Okay, so if you've made it to this point, where do you go next? We hope you keep using ORI. You can use it on your own as long as you want. For many families, they're using ORI as kind of a first step. You may be on wait lists for other types of treatment. You may want to see how much change you can support without professional care. But we certainly are huge fans of behavioral therapy that focuses on caregiver skills. So you may want to look into actually working with a therapist. And the hope is that ORI can be part of your therapy treatment journey in helping you, something that your therapist can look at with you and can be used in between sessions when your therapist is not there to give advice. Again, we want the skills to become a family process. We see, and hopefully you've already seen, they become easier with practice. And then if you're using ORI and you want something next, be sure to check out the ORI community forum. This is a program that's for the parents, by the parents, where you can connect with other caregivers of kids with big feelings or big behaviors to share successes and ideas and challenges. You may also want to become a parent affiliate of ORI. We have a parent affiliate program. And if you are interested in that role and becoming part of our team to help us learn in real time how to help families like yours and lend us your expertise, you can email our email address, ori.journey@maxishealth.com. Okay. Great. So I think we want to open it up now to questions. And I think, Monique, you're going to walk us through any questions. I encourage everybody to, in the chat, drop your questions. What is on your mind? I'd love to talk about topics that feel important to you.
Sounds good. So while you were speaking, we did get one or two here, Erin. So let's see. So how can I tell the difference between my child having a difficult moment versus a larger pattern that may need professional support?
Oh, goodness. That's a great question. How do I know when I need more? So I don't think there is a time that is too soon to look into getting professional support. I mean, we didn't take classes on how to be a parent, right? We brought this child home and we're supposed to somehow have this magic knowledge. I think getting some support early in our parenting journey is ideal. And so I'd encourage you to talk to your pediatrician about what you're seeing. They'll have some rating scales to give you a feel of whether this behavior is pretty typical in development or if it's outside of average and it might be, a bigger concern. But even if your child's challenges are within a typical range, we can all benefit from parenting help. So I guess my shorter answer would be I would recommend talking with your pediatrician about that. But I know even though I teach parenting groups and this is what I do professionally, I need help. I get stuck. I have moments with my kids where my urges are kind of overwhelming me. So I don't think anybody is above needing some, guidance and a sounding board for how they want to parent.
Absolutely. I can second that, honestly. I remember going to our pediatrician and she was so helpful in just pointing me to different resources, right? That I didn't know existed. And I felt like that was, an absolutely critical part of her job. So yeah, that was really extremely helpful. We have another question about siblings here. How can siblings be supported when one child in the family has significant emotional or behavioral challenges?
This is so hard. And I think for a lot of us, this sort of fuels our panic in the moment because we see that our child's behavior is negatively impacting their sibling. Maybe the sibling's a target of aggression. And I know for me, when I start to be spiraling about that, I become less effective in my parenting. So I think part of it is planning ahead, coping ahead, and thinking about how caregivers are going to manage the needs of the different kids. Maybe we want to actually include all the kids in the household in our plan of when somebody's struggling, what's our game plan? And hopefully it's that the sibling is going to give space. I'm struggling to imagine a scenario where we'd want the sibling to engage more during a meltdown, but the sibling has a game plan, understands that coping requires some space, is gonna, do what they need to do, and that we'll come back together. We can talk about it afterwards and debrief. But it's not, we want to not feel like, oh my gosh, this is the nightmare, this is the worst case scenario when inevitably a sibling's involved. We want to just assume that's going to happen and have our response planned ahead of time.
Makes total sense. Okay, so the next question, I think it's one question, but probably a lot of parents can relate. How can parents reduce conflict around screen time without constant power struggles?
Oh man, this is often one of the top couple concerns that families are coming in with in our specialty clinic. So there are some free resources on screens. We have a program that's seattlechildrens.org/FAST, FAST, or if you Google FAST mental health, you'll probably find it, or Seattle Children's FAST. If you look under the behavior tile, you'll see tools for creating a screen time plan for your household. So we can't navigate this fresh every day. We want everybody in the household to know not only how much time do we get on screens, but where in the household do we use screens? Where are screens kept when they're not in use? We don't, the two big things I'd recommend creating rules around are that we're not in our bedroom. Kids are not going to be just in their room on a screen. Get the screens out of there. They do not have the self-control to handle that much access. We have to help them with that. And then screen curfew, because we know that blue light from screens and just the exciting nature of screens activates the brain and makes sleep tougher. So your screen curfew should be at least an hour before bedtime. We want all the screens shut down, ideally 2 hours, but 1 hour maybe is more realistic. And if you can leverage tools, screen control tools that are going to shut the screen down at that time, that's going to save you a wrestling match and having to take it away. I also recommend giving extra screen privileges when your child follows the household rules, when they turn off the screen within the 2-minute wind down window, and talking about the consequence when you sneak screens or you refuse to turn them off, you lose some of your time tomorrow. So it's all about getting ahead of that problem versus in the moment trying to solve it, come up with something new each time. It is hard. I feel you as a parent as well.
The next question, my child has anxiety and his behavior worsens. How can we keep ourselves calm?
I think that right there is what Ori is all about. And we forget that anxiety is fight or flight. It's not just our kid avoiding and cowering in the corner. They are actively fighting the situation and fighting us sometimes and becoming very harsh and aggressive often when they're anxious. It's that's their brain is going into survival mode. So I think having some lens on that instruction in that moment, criticism, lecturing, probably not helpful. Soothing alongside having clear expectations, and focusing on your own parent plan if your child is just caught up in the whirlwind of anxiety is the best that we can do sometimes. Even when we have great skills and a plan, meltdowns are going to happen. That's not a failure. That's part of the process. We are going to have meltdowns. So let me have my plan for how I can weather that, even if I can't control my child's behavior in that moment. But I definitely recommend talking with your pediatrician about anxiety. And if they think that you should pursue some anxiety-focused treatment for your child. And you'll see on the FAST website that we have a workbook for childhood anxiety that helps them do brave practice to face things that are harder. We know avoidance makes anxiety worse. So little by little, we want our kids to learn, I can handle anxiety. I can handle this feeling of discomfort. I'm not out of control. Anxiety goes up and it goes down, and I can cope with this.
Makes sense. So the next question is about what kind of children perceive as you struggle with this kind of self-regulation. Given children sense our emotions, what do children pick up on when we parents are trying to manage our own anger, but our underlying anger is still present? Is this confusing for the child?
Well, this is a really great topic, Irene. I am going to say that if you are a Mary Poppins parent and you never show any negative emotion and you make it look easy, like nothing ruffles you, I think there's a lot less learning for our child in that. We're humans. I, for one, cannot keep my emotions completely invisible, my frustrated or discouraged or overwhelmed feelings. So I recommend that we talk about that. We don't want our kids to believe that absence of feeling is the goal. We want them to believe that everybody has feelings. Nothing's wrong with me that I have feelings, but I can make choices about my behavior when I'm upset. So I definitely say to my kids, I am getting very frustrated. I need to take some breaths. I need to tap out of this. This is what needs to happen now. I need a few minutes. I'm going to find my calm so I can share my calm with you. I also think we're going to mess up. Sometimes we're going to say or do things that were not in line with our values. Happens to me all the time, even though I'm very clear on how I want to parent. I'll hear something come out of my mouth from my own childhood that is not helpful. And I can say, I got really mad. I was getting so worked up that it was hard to think and my breathing was tight and I felt my hands were in fists. And that was not a good time for me to be talking and discussing this with you. What I needed to do was step away, and that's something I want to work on more. So I think vulnerability and being real is a valuable part of parenthood. I don't think it's confusing. I think it would be confusing if our child thought we didn't have any feelings. So I say, talk about it.
Makes sense. We have a question here about how to teach our kids to respect and understand the concept of personal space when they are in social settings.
Oh man, yeah. I know it's so exciting when, social interaction gets dopamine flowing in the brain, that reward chemical. And if you've got a kid who thrives on thrills, they're going to want more and more of that. And they're going to double down. And, if being this close is fun, this close is even more fun, right? And grabbing things is exciting. This is going to be a long process. I wish I could say you explain what a personal bubble is and then your child gets it. But this is going to be a process of us coaching in the moment. So if we're about to enter a birthday party and I know, or a situation I know is going to trigger this kind of wound up behavior, that's a time to remind of our goals in the moment, to talk about maybe the positive outcome, the reward. If I see you keep your hands to yourself, when you're talking to XYZ, set a really clear goal with no more than 3 warnings. We're going to stop at the park on the way home and do this other fun thing. We got to get some dopamine flowing for self-control. And it also means in that setting, we're probably going to have to keep prompting them, reminding them, because it's just too exciting to have all that social input. So it's a long process, but with the consistently structuring ahead of time and coaching in the moment and celebrating their successes, praising, giving lots of attention to success, we see that this skill comes online for kids over time. It's painfully slow going though.
The next question, how to handle the situation where we keep giving multiple reminders to keep on doing a daily basic hygiene task or a routine task, but they continuously keep forgetting or not listening.
Oh yeah, I know. And it's frustrating because they know that they have to do it. They know how to do it. They're just not doing it. So a lot of our daily tasks that we value as adults are not very meaningful to our kids. Making the bed, pointless to most kids. Brushing our teeth, when your window on perspective on time is like this, you don't care about cavities 2 years from now. And if showering is overwhelming, it's cold, it's intense. It makes sense that our kids are going to avoid those things that don't offer them any dopamine, right? So I recommend thinking about where's the dopamine for my child in doing this thing. And if it's something that not only is boring to them, but maybe something they really hate doing, we need to structure in some dopamine that's linked to that. So that might be, first of all, it's going to be clear expectations ahead of time, which it sounds like probably you've already done. We may have our checklist, we may have visual reminders, we have prompts, but then in the moment, we need to link that to something that is worth their while. Whether it's, hey, while you're in the shower, I'm going to put my phone on speaker and you can choose any music you want. Or I'm going to throw your towel in the dryer and bring you a warm towel as your concierge service in the shower. Maybe it's when your teeth are brushed, you can play for 10 more minutes. Otherwise, we got to stop now though. But I will give you bonus playtime if you brush your teeth now. So use that when then. When you're dressed, then you get to pick out which cereal you're eating today. So think about just the natural parts of their day that involve dopamine, and we want to try to link that. You can also give tokens, something in the moment that's going to be cashed in later for a privilege, if it's too rushed to really offer a reward right then.
That's great, wonderful. I'll let the group know there are some great questions coming through. We really appreciate it. Even enhancement ideas for Ori. So thank you, David. We appreciate that as well. We are coming up on our time limit here. So first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Gonzalez. Some of there are so many nuggets that I want to go back and listen to the recording myself. Because you just have a wonderful way of sharing your practical expertise, and I think it's very applicable, and we really appreciate your insights today. We'd like to thank everyone for joining the program. As I said before, we will be sharing the recording when it's available. Please make sure to follow us on all socials because, as many of you know, we are working on the next version of the Ori app. That'll be coming out later in the year, but we have all kinds of interesting features and enhancements that the team is hard at work on now, and we'll be sharing some of those through our social platforms. If any of you have any questions, whether it's about Ori, anything that Dr. Gonzalez covered today, or just ideas about Ori, we encourage you to reach out to us. Again, that ori.journey@maxishealth.com email is the one that we will see it and we'll be able to respond to you as quickly as possible. So we thank you all for joining us today. Hope you got as much out of it as I did, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.